Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your boy GZTV. We are back with another video, and in this video we are finally here to close the Final Destination franchise out for now. We're here with Final Destination Bloodlines, the latest film from a major millennial horror franchise. Came out just last year in 2025. Obviously we have been covering 2025 films. Just got done watching it and man, this was fun. Like, I'm not even gonna sit here and act like this is some perfect horror masterpiece, but I had an absolute blast watching this movie, and honestly, after going through the entire franchise leading up to this feels like the perfect modern revival. And now that I'm more familiar with the prior films and like the fan service worked for me, I really enjoyed this movie. I had fun, like, as a fan of the franchise. Because let's be real, Final Destination as a concept, it's always been simple. You know, you get the premonition, the escape, death comes back, it's kind of rinse and repeat. I mean, we kind of, not the same 5 movies, but a lot of the same concepts from those 5 films. But this movie said, all right, what if we actually switch it up? They do it at a very high level. I'm gonna get into what I like, what I don't like, all that stuff, kind of just give an overview of what happens in this film for those of you that don't care to watch it. I'm gonna try not to spoil things, but there are certainly a lot of twists in this movie that you kind of need to be there for, so please go watch it before you watch my review. So getting into the premise just right away, just the change of concept of this. Like, instead of just following survivors of a disaster, which they do, and it's like slightly referenced, like, hey, all the people that were supposed to die at this like skyrise restaurant, and they even show it there. It kind of looks like the Eiffel Tower, but it's called the Sky View. It's like this, I don't know what kind of dumbass idea, like, who would build a restaurant 400 feet off the ground? That is a recipe for disaster, but whatever. The movie introduces a completely new idea. Death isn't just coming for people who escaped, it's coming for people who were never supposed to exist in the first place because of the people that were supposed to die in the disaster, and that is such a cool concept. Something I never really even thought about when I thought of Final Destination, and that is really cool. We're taking full-on bloodline targeting, which is why this movie is called Bloodlines. Family, generations, people living entire lives that technically shouldn't have happened, and that is absolutely insane. That is such a cool concept to me. We're going to get into all the intricacies of the storyline here in a second. Easily one of the best ideas this franchise has ever come up with. I know I have mentioned in past videos, like the things like the photos and the fact, like, oh, you got to take a life to add on, and they do kind of add that here. They do kind of like continue on with that route, but they take it in a completely different direction. It's like, oh, whoever's the oldest on this tree, you go down their side of the family, and like the way that it's all explained and they come together like Stranger Things style, dude. I fucking love this movie. There's a lot to say about it. We're gonna get into it. So getting into the good, just the Bloodlines concept and the way they use that to really loop everything around. I think this is a very complete movie. It is the highlight of the movie, no question. It's just the concept, and a lot of movies I could say that for when you have a bizarre concept, but usually Final Destination can be pretty mundane and have the same thing over and over. But this time, instead of just you cheated death, like you were supposed to die in this disaster and you didn't, either someone saved you by a premonition or you saved yourself with the premonition, it becomes like your entire existence is a mistake because like your mother or your grandmother or your sibling or something like that had this premonition or was one of the people that survived the disaster because of this person with the premonition. It is insane. It's very dark to think of it that way because like you never really think of that when you go through the prior Final Destination films. You're not thinking about like, oh shit, like their kids technically shouldn't exist, and they take that concept and they take it to 100, and it just makes the franchise so much bigger. It just makes the world so much bigger because of that, and it just makes it way more interesting. You're not just following these random ass characters. There's a lot of familial connections, and we'll get into like the emotional impact that this film has because a lot of the characters are very much expanded upon compared to other films. The way they tie everything in, the family history of like their grandmother having the premonition and that being a part of her granddaughter's dream and like her wanting to get in contact. Oh, we don't talk to her because she's batshit fucking insane, and like the whole generational trauma, how it affected her mother and how that kind of got her banished from the household. All the past events, everything coming together, and the way they explain it is so perfectly well done. It actually gives this movie some weight. It actually gives this movie some lore. Now, they already built a lot of the lore to like throughout the original movies, but this adds a completely different layer that you would never think about. Iris and her daughter get exiled because these people think they're batshit insane, and I'm usually kind of bothered by the whole trope of like, oh, you're fucking crazy, that's not even possible. Like those dumbass characters, there's a couple of characters that piss me off with that in this movie, but like, you know, it really creates something here. And I will say, it's obviously not explored to its absolute fullest potential. You can feel that, but for what it is, this is the most refreshing the franchise has felt since the original. I do think they could have dove into it more. I don't know what they plan on doing with the franchise, if they plan on like using this concept for all the future movies, or if they have different stipulations for each film, if they're going to keep making movies in the first place, but there you go. I think the kills are very back to form. Now, most movies were just very brutal, just deaths, like a fan going through your head, or like nail gun shooting you in the face. A lot of the ones of like the later Final Destination, I know Final Destination like 1 through 3 were very Rube Goldberg, but like 4 and 5 didn't fully, especially 4, they didn't fully rely on that much, and I think that's kind of the bread and butter of this franchise. It has the best style kill since the original. I think that is huge. Just getting into some of the kills. The MRI machine scene, that is absolutely the standout. That is the best kill in this movie. Definitely a highlight for the franchise. Like everything metal in the room pulling towards the machine, and everything even outside of the room, like this girl's name tags pulling towards this room, like death this way, you know. It's kind of a signifier, like the tension building, like how are they going to get out of this, because Eric, who's not the actual biological brother, there's a whole plot twist with that. I guess we can get into that in a second. You know, he tells his brother Bobby, he's like, well, they said, you know, you have to kill someone and resuscitate them. You technically have to cheat death again to like reverse the curse and stop the lineage. And so his brother is like on the ground, his throat's clogged, and Eric's getting pulled into the machine one by one, and he had this wheelchair that he wanted his brother to sit in, and like he's sitting there getting pressed against the MRI, and like the wheelchair's like pushing against his back, and all of a sudden the posts on the wheelchair just like fly through his back. And then even what happens after the full circle moment with the vending machine, them getting the spring and them getting the peanut butter cups out, and that spring going through the magnet and hitting him in the head. It's fucking crazy. The double kill is a very brutal scene as well. All the piercings and the utilization of the piercings on Eric in this movie was really cool as well. Just peak Final Destination. That's like some of the best stuff they could have did. You know, basically a walking death trap because of his piercing, and you get the whole scene with the nose ring dragging around, and like gets caught in this chain. That's like, why would you have a chain right by a fan? Fucking stupid. But like the fan knocks it down. It's like holding up his ring, and he's like getting pulled up, and it's like ripping out of his fucking nose, and he knocks over some disinfectant, and it gets caught on fire. It's fucking crazy. I'm not even gonna lie, I was sitting there like, did they just imply this man had a ring down here? Yeah. We're not even gonna fully finish that sentence. I want to keep this as PG as possible. We already catch enough copyright and stuff. I don't want to make this a fucking non-family friendly video. The whole sequence was just creative as hell. Everything with Eric involved was super creative. You obviously have the dump truck scene, and how like the whole thing is basically playing out in Steph's head, like, oh, the tree trimmer's gonna fall, and the guy with the leaf blower's gonna blow leaves in the soccer player's eyes, and they're gonna get distracted, kick the ball, hit somebody, and then she falls in the trash can, the dump truck lifts it up, and her head just gets squashed. It's insane. Like the lawnmower scene too, perfect example of what this movie does well. Builds tension, fakes you out, and then either delays or redirects the kill. This movie loves pump fakes, and I love that for it. Like the glass in the grass, like the rake being found under the trampoline. Very creative. And I think honestly for this movie, the buildup is better than the deaths, and that is kind of a good thing. It could be a bad thing, but it's honestly a good thing. It might be the most important thing the movie does right though. It's not just about the kills anymore, it's about the buildup. It's about those pump fakes like I was just talking. Like the lawn scene is very iconic for that exact reason. Even the ending was very iconic, and the comedic nature of that even. And you know someone's about to die, and then the movie just sits there like, all right, how's it gonna happen again? And this movie, you know, usually you'd play the detective work, like how is this person going to die? What do these images mean? And this one, it's like as it is happening, as things are building up, like how is this person going to die? It's crazy. Every little object matters again, every sound, every movement, and because of that, the tension is way higher than some of the previous movies. And like they know what is happening, so now they know who is going to die because of Steph, and like this whole theory with the family tree that is right, of course. Like so when they're walking around, they see the revolving doors, they're like, oh wait, you know, like it's such a cool concept. And the characters, this is probably the first movie in the entire franchise that the characters actually get fucking depth. Might be the biggest improvement from any of the previous 5 films. You actually care about the characters in this movie. Steph is the main character, easily one of the best in the franchise. I know she's kind of cheeky and whatever. But she's not just like reacting to everything that's going on and trying to be a hero. She's actively analyzing everything around her. She's paranoid. She's like over observant. She has so many nuances with her character that are so unique. She's actually trying to understand what's happening. And then like you've got other characters like Iris, the crazy grandmother who turns out to be right. And she's like, oh, just kill me. And then the fucking like little like compass post on the top of the house, I don't know what they call those, shoots through her because like the air tank and all that stuff. And then you have the estranged mother storyline of like how this mother was banished away, and now those three kind of work together in the third act of the film and they start to bond as a family. You have Charlie needing help from his sister, like feeling neglected because she went off to college, and they build their bond and he eventually saved her life. There's a lot of comedy. There's actual emotion here, actual relationships, and yeah, they still use grief to connect characters, but it works way better here than it did in earlier films. It doesn't feel forced. And again, a whole section has to go to Tony Todd. Rest in peace. We got to talk about him because this hits absolutely different. I'm not usually a huge fan of fan service. I think it is very corny at times, but Tony Todd, the coroner, the Candyman himself, this feels kind of like a send-off, not just for that character, for JB, I can't remember his name, but it feels like a send-off for Tony Todd. I think this is his final casting in the film. He's not heavily involved in the plot, but his presence is still absolutely powerful, and the whole connection all the way back to the beginning, the kid whose mother was performing in the opening setting in the sky view, incredible continuity. I fucking love that they loop all that around, make fan service while expanding on the lore. And this whole vibe here is basically, I'm done explaining this shit. Y'all figure it out. I'm ready to retire. I'm ready to send off and enjoy my final moments, you know? And honestly, fair enough. And I think there's just a lot of comedy with this as well. Now, I will touch on this briefly. I don't know if I have this in my notes, but just the comedy of like the doctor coming in at the end and like, oh, when you drown, you go unconscious. You don't actually die. It's like, what? I wasn't dead, I was unconscious. And the train comes through and kills him at the end. I think that's a lot more comical of an ending to kill the main characters than they've done before. That was a lot. Let's go. So getting into the bad, we obviously have to keep it real. I mean, there are still bad things. I think there's still some pacing concept and limitations to this whole thing. The pacing felt a little bit odd at times. I don't really know how to explain it. I don't really know specific moments. Like, they do take a little too long to get to like, oh, the bloodline. I think it's like 50 minutes, maybe even an hour left in the film, but like, I don't think that was enough time to really explore the concept of the bloodline being taken out. It's not slow, but it is very methodical. And because the concept is so big, it feels like they could have gone even deeper with it. This could have easily been expanded into multiple films or even a series, as like people are like dying as you keep going and it keeps going down the lineage. It explores different families. Again, I know they are rebooting the franchise, so maybe they plan on making multiple films out of this type of thing, but I don't really know. I'm kind of just listing things off. Let's get into the CGI. I think the CGI is still noticeable. It's not as bad as like the Final Destination, the fourth film. It's better than before, more like a modern high-end video game look. I didn't mind it. Like, it didn't overall bother me. I probably should have put this in the okay, but I had to slide a few things in the bad here. It's still not perfect. I mean, the way some people die, their bodies just splatter everywhere in like physical ways that just don't make sense. Some of the kills aren't super polished to me. I don't know. It is what it is. And then the one character I fucking hate, of course, like I talked about earlier, that still has that trope of like, oh, you're fucking crazy. I'll never believe you. Marty. Because like, yeah, his wife is estranged and he was like their father for most of their lives, but to an extent you like support the mother over him because this guy is a fucking idiot. Everyone else is figuring it out, like, oh, it's going down the family lineage, and like people are starting to believe it. Now I guess like Brenda, the mother, was kind of like that too. This man's acting like nothing's happening, and that is kind of a problem in this franchise overall as well, is that some characters just kind of breeze through like, oh, it's fucking fine, and like someone dies and you just move on with your fucking lives. Like, this is a tragedy. This is something that can make news. Like, this string of unfortunate events, like in real life, would be a pretty big fucking deal. At a certain point, it's like, come on, man, read the room. You're acting like a fucking idiot. Oh, you're trying to drag our family apart again. He's saying that to Darlene. Like, no, she's just going with what everyone else says because it seems like whatever the fuck Stephanie's saying, it's fucking happening. Like, what are you talking about, dude? I don't know. I just didn't like his character. Getting into the okay, just a real quick thing, because I know I talked a lot in the other sections. I just don't think they fully expand or evolve on the lore. I guess they kind of just add pieces. This movie doesn't completely just reinvent the movie. Now, obviously, there is a completely different concept to it. It adds to it, I guess. It kind of expands it, but it doesn't fully redefine it like FD5 did with the timeline twist. If anything, this movie borrows a lot of things from FD5, and honestly, it's whatever. There's a lot of things that are kind of whatever. I can't remember anything else that I missed. I mean, obviously the third act scene of the whole fucking house blowing up now, although that seems pretty unrealistic that a single spark could blow a fucking house up, maybe, but I'm not really sure. This was just a good movie, like, overall, though. It kind of turns into this road trip, and they're, like, going to the hospital, which is an hour away. So, really fun movie. I think it's one of the more adventurous, and it takes place in multiple places. I think it's one of the more entertaining. I think in terms of, like, a theater experience, this would probably be the best one of the entire franchise. Maybe Final Destination 5 was, if, like, you're talking about the hardcore fans sitting there, but let's just get into a review, man. I think just for like a miscellaneous type of section for this video, because I don't feel like I talked about it originally long enough, I think we're just going to add a couple more things. I think first off, I'm going to start by talking about just the concept of like a nightmare of someone else's premonition. I think that's a very unplausible but a cool, unique storytelling device. A premonition within a dream, I think that's very cool, and I think the premonition like stopping the tragedy, I think there's a lot of unique things that this movie really goes with that. I don't think it's necessarily good, bad, or okay, any of these things. I just wanted to bring them up. The movie still stays true to what works. It does a lot of new things, adds a lot of new concepts, but it doesn't sacrifice what they've built for over 2.5 decades. It stays true to form, and I very much appreciate that. It goes in a route you wouldn't expect. Like, you start the movie off, they have this premonition. You think it's like a period piece, like a pure prequel, like, hey, we're going back in time and all of this stuff. But no, like, it shows like, oh, she's pregnant. It's like, oh, is that gonna be one of the kids that's in the other films, or the mother of whoever's in the films, or whatever? But no, they take it in completely different directions, and they have the whole Bloodline storyline, which I don't need to expand on further. I think it's a funny movie, and I think Eric as a character added to how funny that was, adds to the comedy. That's why he always, like, saying just the funniest like one-liners. That's why he always wanted to play catch when he found out about his real biological father. Just absolutely ridiculous and such subtle, awesome comedy. The scene with the babies, nah, we're not gonna do that. Like, they switch lives, and like, whatever they have left, you live. And I talked about it in the previous video, ironically enough, like, oh, what if they killed a kid, you know? Or what if they killed a kid and like a couple years later that kid would have got cancer and died, you know? That's crazy. And there's a variety of different kills. There's slow burn kills, there's Rube Goldberg kills, which we talked about, and there's also just sudden wham, just brutal ass kills. So I just kind of wanted to add some stuff here, and then we can take it to the review from here. Now, I'm not sure if I like talked in this review as much as I really wanted to, but getting into it, overall, Final Destination Bloodlines is exactly what this franchise needed. Is kind of just a reset button, kind of a restart. We're starting a new era of the franchise. We want to carry the legacy just because of how successful the first 5 films were. It doesn't abandon the formula, but it evolves it just enough. It brings better tension, better character work, a fresh concept, and some of the most creative kills we've seen in years from this franchise. And most importantly, it makes Final Destination feel relevant again. I'm not gonna lie, it is very tough to rank these movies now, because this one is very interesting to try to slide in there. I think this is better than 2, 3, and definitely better than 4. And it is right up there with the original and the Final Destination 5. Again, this is a very interesting one to kind of slide into the ranking, because it is kind of a different movie from the other 5. But I don't know if that makes it necessarily better than every last one of those 5. Honestly, it might be my favorite, but I need a rewatch to lock that in. It's possible that there's recency bias kind of coming into play here, like, oh, this literally just came out in 2025, and this is the first movie I was actually like watching movies to like see the reception and stuff as it was coming out in theaters and stuff. Obviously, I remember a little bit about the first Final Destination movies, but you gotta think, like, I was 8 when 5 came out, and I was like 6 when 4 came out, and you know, you get me. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10 though. It's not perfect, but it's creative, intense, funny, ridiculous in the best way. Again, I didn't even really expand on the comedy like I should have. It proves this franchise still has life in it, and if this is the start of a new era, I'm all in. I would really like for them to potentially make more movies out of it. So, that being said, leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. It's Jesus TV. I'm out. Go check out the social medias. Have a good rest of your day, night, whenever you are watching. Expand this down in the comments, because, man, there is definitely things to talk about with this movie that I didn't get to, or some concisions. So, let's talk about it.